We play for keeps, Cuddy. You ain't heard about the huddle fire with no with DLane. We tryna get it off the muscle. Walters caught the pick and ran it back without a tussle. Blow the whistle, coach is trying to get back to the huddle.
Welcome to the 510 Huddle podcast. It's your boy, Coach DLane. It's a beautiful Monday morning. I got my brother Keaton and McCoy right here with me. How you doing today, brother?
It's a great day, brother.
Yeah, man. Hey, we got a lot to talk about today on the show. But I want to start off with a little curveball for you that I didn't put on the script.
Okay.
Because I said something last night on Twitter that kind of sparked a little bit of a discussion. I got a few guys that text me a little bit of some blowback from my tweet. And basically, I said I love the Isaiah Likely kid. You know, we brought him up last week on the pod, the tight end. He just had another monster game for the Ravens in the first half. I think last night he had like 8 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. The kid's a stud. I said I can't wait to see him and Andrews in that 12 personnel package and see how that looks for the Ravens this season. I have the Ravens as one of my dark horse Super Bowl teams, man. Last year I believe I had the Bills. This year I wanted to go to pick the Bills again, but I felt like that was an obvious pick. I wanted to go with Lamar, man, and it seemed like people forgot that Lamar and company was the number 1 seed last year. They were 6-2 before all those injuries started happening. Before Lamar caught COVID and then he messed up his ankle. He was having one of his better throwing seasons from throwing the ball from the pocket actually last season before he got hurt. The defense added more pieces. They're about 6 DBs deep. They could play 5 DBs on the field at all times if they want this upcoming season. They still got Campbell, Patrick Queen at linebacker, Campbell at D-line. I believe they got a top 5 defense. I like the Ravens, man. How do you feel about the Ravens for this upcoming season? Last thing, Keaton, and I also believe Lamar. I'm big on contract year. I believe it can make or break you or really show what type of player you are, type of character you have, and resolve you have.
Yeah.
I believe if Lamar doesn't have a contract done going into week 1, I'm even more all in on Lamar having a dominant season and just showing F you to the Ravens and the NFL type attitude and having a dominant season.
So you picking the Ravens sparked a debate?
People was acting like I was crazy.
Really?
Man, Zay said it was he didn't believe every one of the top 3 AFC teams, and he believed it was a few teams that was better or had better rosters.
So first off, he is smoking too much. Secondly, I think people are too blinded by the quarterback heavy AFC in terms of like the sexiness of how some guys throw. If I have to go roster for roster, I don't think I can name like 3 to 4 teams that have a better roster. That's just me personally. Honestly, and I think with some of the offseason acquisitions for some teams, I do think some people are being blinded by name and not by actual performance and like what they are right now. Khalil Mack, for example, is still really, really good, but he's not Khalil Mack anymore. He's not like the defensive player of the year. So people that are all on the Chargers, I understand why, but I would pump the brakes because it's the Chargers and they've missed the playoffs with all of that talent the last, 3 years now? And until they actually come through in a big spot, I'm not picking them. Same thing with Denver. I mean, but anyways, the Ravens, are they my pick? No. Would it shock me? Hell no. They're too good.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, they're not my pick, but it just wouldn't shock me if they got the Super Bowl.
And the same thing with the Bills, with their roster. Their roster is overrated. It's literally Josh Allen is the reason people are picking them. The Chiefs roster overall has gotten better, but I don't think the roster necessarily is better than the Ravens. They might have more star power, but that doesn't mean you have a better roster.
I think you picked the Bengals over them, and I was just iffy on the Bengals, man. Like, I know they picked up that or helped add some additions to the O-line. But I just believe, especially defensively, the Ravens
I
are set up
love
to
their
guard.
secondary,
Me
though.
too. I love
The
their
Bengals.
secondary, and I believe it's set up to guard a team like Cincy. I like their secondary, and the Saints are like two of my favorite secondaries right now on paper that I've been looking at going
The
into
one
this.
thing that I will say, though, the Bengals secondary is underrated. Of those like elite teams that
You
are
can
in
pick,
the
you can pick
AFC,
You can pick Eli Apple ass apart, brother. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, 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 but no, but I mean, forget him. I'm talking about like who like they added to,
Okay.
and also like Eli's not great or anything, but I do think
He's not
he does
terrible. He just
get a bad rap at times. He's talented, but some of that is, as like we've seen with some of like his off-field stuff, and it's not like bad things. It's just like what he does in like social. He doesn't always have his head in the right place, which shows up in
I
his
just personally, I
performance.
wouldn't have him in much man coverage. Because sometimes it seems like he has a hard time concentrating and staying locked in on his
But
take.
yeah, well, yeah,
His
like
ass.
that's the point. like he's a
Got
very talented man, but just those things, as like we've seen with some of his social media posts, like they show up on the field. But yeah, no, I don't know. I feel like this is Lamar hate, and people don't want to admit it. I firmly believe if one of these other young guys were on the Ravens, everybody would pick them. So yeah, no, that
Gotcha.
is crazy.
Yeah, man. I just wanted to start the show off with that because, I got a little blowback for that tweet, man. But let's move on. Got a lot to talk about today. Let's start with the NFL top 100 list. We talked about it a little bit on the last pod. I believe 50 or 51 through 100 was released at that time. Last night they released 50 to 21, I believe.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it a little bit, man, because it's definitely some wild picks placed on this list. Some aging guys that shouldn't be on here. Some young guys that's pretty talented, that's pretty low. Some young guys that's pretty talented, that's pretty high. What's your thoughts, man, from last night's release?
So as you and I have been discussing, the players list, what fans have to realize is, yes, these guys are obviously in the NFL and like they study film. Players are focused on so many other things. Like when they get these ballots, they don't really know like what's happening necessarily. So a lot of guys, they get the ballot and it's like, oh yeah, Tyron Smith, yeah. It's just from like name, yeah, it's just from name and reputation. So like sometimes when these like lists like come out, fans are like, oh my God, like what? No, it's like, no. Like most guys, they're not paying attention enough, and like they're not fully taking this stuff seriously. So that's for a disclaimer in so basically in like defense of like the players voting. But the things that stood out to me, I thought it was interesting. Trayvon Diggs, I do believe, just based on his performance in terms of his playmaking ability, deserved to be high. I personally just would not have put him in front of Jamar Chase, Nick Bosa, and like a few other names. Do I have a huge issue with his number ranking? No, but it's just some of the names that are behind him. But again, like I said last pod, if I went through this entire list, everybody could be top 50, and that's not the case. Like everybody has to be slotted.
Is Dak better than Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins?
Personally, no. But I want to say this though, as a disclaimer. Some people that I really respect in the media business that play the game and do quarterback rankings and that really know it, and I trust them, believe Dak Prescott is firmly in the top 10 and he's not number 10. They have him like 8 or 9, which would insinuate that he's in front of guys like that and other guys that I personally wouldn't. And also when the NFL and also when ESPN came out with their rankings when it came to coaches voting, executives voting, Dak again is like firmly in the top 10. And so why I might have a bias against it is because I only have TV copy. And when I watch the Cowboys play against better teams, Dak usually doesn't get in rhythm or turn it on, quote unquote, until they're down by 2+ scores and like the defense is changed. I know if I know that, these other coaches and GMs that like vote on these lists know that too. So
I just believe teams are high. I believe teams are high on Dak's leadership intangibles, and he does have that quality about him. You know, through the midst of all the bullshit Jerry Jones and the Cowboys you usually have going on year to year, you can pretty much count on Dak to be like that consistent, stable on the roster and leader of the franchise. But as far as talent wise, bro, like he's ahead of Kyler Murray. He's not better than Kyler, especially as a talent. I don't give a damn if Russ was hurt last year. I don't give a damn if Russ missed more than half of last season. He's not better than Russ. Like, how is he higher than Russ? That makes no sense to me.
I mean, when you go through this list, it is interesting. I mean, I wouldn't have had Herbert as low as 40. I mean, hey man, do not worry about it. You have daddy duties. But I mean, look, like Tristan Wirfs is arguably one of the 2 best tackles in football, and he's at 41. So the list, I think what we have to take this list as, it doesn't matter where you're slotted. If you're on it, it means something. Doesn't mean everything, no, but it means something. So that's how I've taken this list the last couple of years. And yes, I am a fan. So like sometimes when I see certain players slotted somewhere, I'm like what? But ultimately, you kind of got to take this with a grain of salt.
Man, one last guy that I actually like. Been really high on him the last few seasons, especially for fantasy football, but he's still a little high for me. And I really like Austin Eckler. But at 46,
I mean, look,
I can name about 50 off the top of my head. I can name about 50 talents that's better than him in the NFL.
I do agree. Just for the sake of this, I mean, Joe Mixon's 38, and do I think he's in the same class as Joe Mixon as a talent? Personally, no, I don't. But again, I just think this is more so players giving some guys that don't get the love nationally their love. I think that's what this list is more so for. Because like we said last pod, like guys like Marshawn Lattimore and Denzel Ward, they're in the 80s when they should, and I think that you would also agree with this, they should be much higher than that. Well, you really can't listen to like their like actual ranking. I think you just have to have an appreciation for them just being on here.
Yeah, and then Bobby Wag and Leonard. I'm not sure if Leonard got and I still like what I'm about to tell you. And Leonard, I don't believe he got listed yet, right? Darius Leonard. Those would be the only 2 that I could possibly see in front of Fred Warner. But Fred Warner is arguably the top linebacker in the NFL. How is he 40-something? He's what, 46? 47. He's behind Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is arguably not a top 10 running back. Like, you have to argue for him to get into the top 10. But Fred Warner is a top 3, top 5 linebacker, no discussion, arguably number 1. That makes man.
Let me say this also.
Fred
Warner for me is the number 1 linebacker in the entire NFL. Shaquille Leonard, because that's what he's going by now. For me, is 2. Bobby Wagner, I know I think he made 2nd team All-Pro, but this is another thing with like defensive players, especially at positions like that. Sometimes when like the media even votes, they also do this name and reputation thing, and they look at their stats. I'm like, okay, like he's still a good player. I would not have had him an All-Pro over some of these other guys. But is he still a very good player? Yeah. Does he deserve to be on this list? Yeah. But that one was definitely a name and reputation selection, and I can just leave it there.
Definitely. My last one, two things. I'm shocked that Trevon Diggs is so high. Like, he's literally in front of his brother with a resume. Like, you got to have some type of consistency here. You can't be giving up 1,000 yards in coverage. But anyway, I guess he's top 25 or whatever. And then the last one I wanted to tip my hat to this OG because about a year or two ago, I looked at his numbers. I'm like, well, damn, he's still kind of rolling, man. And I think last year he had like 18 sacks, they said. Robert Quinn, man. Robert Quinn.
Yeah.
OG Robert Quinn came in at what?
2011.
Huh?
He was in the 2011 draft.
Yeah, but I'm trying to see where he came in.
Oh, I think he was
48. Came in at number 48, man. And definitely just want to tip my hat to that OG. He's definitely still getting it done. Robert Quinn, man. I was surprised that he made the list, but I was actually happy to see him on the list.
Yeah, and I guess one more thing for me, Quentin Nelson is definitely deserving of where he is rated. But Zach Martin, there's not a 40 pick discrepancy between him and Zach Martin. And I'll leave it there.
Got you. Let's move on then, man. We got another interesting topic right here. Me and brother, we always talk ball just on our random phone calls. And I believe it was last week we were having a conversation about QBs, man, and QBs that can make all the throws, and we were just talking about special arm talents. And it sparked a little bit of a debate and conversation between us. So we said, hey, let's put it on wax. And let's try to tier these guys out. Let's make a 3-level QB tier system for the current quarterbacks right now in the NFL. We went 3 levels, and level 1, 2, and 3. We'll start from the bottom up, 3 up. But we're talking about specifically, we're not talking about overall quarterback play, wins and losses, numbers. We're not talking about none of that. We're just talking about guys that can make all the throws and that has a special arm talent. Let's take it away. I'll start off with you, brother. Let's each list off. We'll go back and forth, listing off a tier, discuss that tier, and then move to the next one. Let's start with tier 3. List out yours. I'll list out mine, and then we can debate it.
Okay, so for me, I have my tiers slated as special, elite, and then league average. Really, there's I think 5 tiers, but I guess just for the sake of time, like we're just doing it this way. So for me, the lower one is league average. So guys that are capable of making almost every throw, but they do have some limitations to what they can do in terms of just overall driving the ball, maybe the RPMs that they can put on it. So guys like, just for example, Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, Jimmy Garoppolo. I have Dak Prescott in this tier, even though he is the best quarterback in this tier to me. So I have guys like that in this tier. I think Daniel Jones is in this tier also, even though I do think he has a little bit better of an arm than that, honestly, with what he can
put it all together.
Yeah, so that's why he's in this tier. So yeah, those are like my guys that are in this tier.
Got you. And we have some overlap here. For me, I would kind of say tier 1 for me was elite, special elite, top of the top. 2 was just a slight step below that. 3 for me was guys that's above average. Like, they're pretty good. They're not special, but they're pretty good, and damn near can make just about all the throws. In that tier 3 for me, some of the same guys, Dak, Kirk Cousins. I could see Darnold in there. I could also see Daniel Jones in there, but I put Trevor Lawrence in there. I put Lamar in there, and I put Goff in there. And like I said, these are guys I believe that's slightly above average. talents with throwing the football?
So I almost put Goff in this tier. The only reason I did not, and he's not even on my tier list right now, is because I do value spirals because it makes the ball more catchable, and he throws a wobbler. But like I understand what you're saying. So like there's no push, like it's just for like the sake of this. Like there's no pushback, but like I value spirals personally.
Got you. We'll move to the next tier. Earlier, brother, you said you'd take Carr and Cousins over Dak, but you just said a minute ago Dak was your favorite in that tier, but you got him and Kirk Cousins in that tier together.
Yeah, I do. Because Dak, because this is part of arm talent for me. Dak can move and throw, and Kirk can't.
No, so I'm saying just overall quarterback, which one do you think is better out of the two?
I give the slightest edge to Dak, but it's really a coin flip. Honestly, like if like you asked me that yesterday, I probably would have said Kirk. So
got you. Tier 2, brother.
So this is my elite tier. I have Tom Brady, I have Russell Wilson, I have Kyler Murray, I have Derek Carr, I have Trevor Lawrence in here, I have Baker Mayfield, and I have Justin Fields. Just guys that can drive it, guys that don't really need the cleanest of pockets and the cleanest of situations. Baker's probably the worst in this tier regarding that, because if he doesn't have a clean pocket, his play really deteriorates. But he can drive that ball when he's healthy.
He throws a nice. Yeah, he definitely.
He really does. He really does. Trevor,
consistent play from him for me. But go ahead.
Yeah. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. They can put the ball where they want, and they have very strong arms. And also people sometimes confuse strong arms with like distance, which is part of it, but it's how hard can you throw it? And those two can really drive it. Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, especially Kyler. The reason Kyler's not in special is because he's 5'10" and he can't see over the defense, and that limits him and what he can actually do. Despite him having one of the best deep balls in the league, this is the same thing with Russell Wilson. Because they're 5'10", they can't throw it over the middle usually because they just can't see. So that plays into it, unfortunately for them. Like height is a skill. I know people, when it comes to combine time, they say these numbers and stuff, they don't matter. Yes, they do. Right. They really do matter, because at the end of the day, you don't want a cornerback running 4.46. The only one that I've ever seen really have actual success is Richard Sherman, and he played zone for a majority of his career. But anyways, yeah, so that is my tier. I have Tom Brady at basically like the top of it, just because I think his arm all time is underrated, like I told you last week.
Yeah. Yeah, not many pushbacks there for me. Definitely won't argue Trevor Lawrence being there. Like I said, I got him above average. I could see the special, I could see the elite talent, arm talent there. Just need to see a little more. Fields, definitely can see the strong arm, can see the long ball from him. Just need to see a little more. Got to see a little more for me to put him on the list, but I won't push back there. Baker, same thing. Like I said a minute ago, definitely can throw a nice tight spiral. Just, when the pressure's on him or the situation around him isn't up to par, it seems like he can, just unravel a bit with his mechanics, and the ball can be a bit of a wobbler from time to time. So inconsistency is the reason why I didn't put Baker in my list. But if I did, I'll probably put him like in that tier 3 or right at average. My tier 2 started off. We have, again, some overlaps, about 2 or 3 here. I had Brady, I had Russ, I had Kyler in there. I believe a few years ago, or like a couple years ago, I probably would have. No, excuse me. I'm not even gonna say that. I got Brady on here. I got Brady, Russ, and Kyler. Those are the guys that you have. I got Carr. I put Carr in tier 2 for me. I really like Carr. I believe he doesn't get his just due. been getting it a little more the last few seasons, especially with all that he had to go through last year. But he's a pretty consistent thrower of the football, accurate, 67, 65 plus completion percentage, usually year in and year out. So you pretty much know what you're going to get from Derek Carr. A guy that might shock you that I put on the list, two guys. One, I put Burrow on here. I see elite. I don't see the special arm talent. Like, I don't see the crazy throws from different off platforms I see from the A-Rod, the Mahomes, and the other guys that we'll talk about in a minute. But I really like Burrow. Like I said, I really see him in that same cloth as Tom Brady. So I kind of put them right there together. The one that I believe, I don't know if it's going to shock you because the arm talent's there. It's just kind of like Baker, the inconsistencies. I put Wentz in my tier 2, man. I put Carson Wentz in my tier 2. I really like Carson, man. I was high on him for my Eagles. Really thought he had promise. I loved him and Dougie P's relationship early on. To me, at the end of the day, I always tell people it was kind of hard to really grade and judge Carson in his time and tenure with my Eagles because majority of the time of him being under the center, he was playing with backups, man. Like, literally from every level and unit on the football team, from O-line to receivers to backs to our defense. Like, when he was playing there, like, we were one of the most injured teams in the NFL for like a 2-3 year stretch. And yeah, man, he was just in a tough situation. But I definitely believe his arm talent, just as far as being able to make all the throws, he can be special. Like, if he put it all together and just be consistent with it, he could possibly be special. But Carson Wentz definitely has an elite arm.
So I purposely did not name 3 guys because I wanted to see if pretty much like if you would mention them.
Gotcha.
I have Wentz here too. Burrow to me is in between elite and league average. The reason I gave him the nod is just because, like, this is where like that 5-tier thing is, because he would be in that like
Gotcha.
3rd tier for me. But yeah, I have Burrow there too, and I have Lamar Jackson. I don't think he gets enough credit for how good he can throw the ball. Greg Roman is a very good offensive coordinator, but I do think the Ravens, from what I've heard, they do need a passing game coordinator. I do think Lamar is capable of pretty much more than what he has shown so far, and he's shown a lot, and he does not get enough credit for how good his arm is.
His college coach was an NFL guy. What was his college coach name again? Because he actually had him rip it. Petrino?
Yeah.
No.
So I don't know why I want to say he did not have Bobby Petrino. Oh, wait, did he?
I think he did.
I don't know.
And they was
I don't know why.
He was running the NFL like they were letting Lamar rip it.
He was a strictly, like, that offense was strictly NFL pro style offense. He was under center. He was a drop back passer there. What is it? Always the prettiest arm motion? No, because he's a flick of the wrist guy, but he can spin it. And people need to just get over how it looks, quote unquote. He throws a nice spiral, and he can put RPMs on the ball more so than guys that people hype up because they're on winning teams. He's a very good thrower.
Got you.
And Wentz, last thing with Wentz, he, in terms of just ability, he's in between special and like elite. Again, these tiers are not about how you play the position. This is not about your leadership. This is not about that. It's just guys that if we just sat down and we're at a combine, quote unquote, and we watch them spin, and bless you.
Thank you.
That guy can spin the ball. The reason I put him in elite and not special is because I do think that his touch comes and goes, and I think the guys that are in special, besides Brady, obviously, because Brady is in this tier, I think they can really control their tempos better at any point and at any time.
I like that.
And I don't think Wentz can really do that consistently.
Brother, let's go to tier 1 to finish off the list here. I want to start because I believe I'm leaving somebody off, and I want to hear your reaction to my list, and I want to see yours after mine. So let me go with tier 1, all right? Got Pat, of course. Got Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers. And the guy I believe that's like on the bottom of this tier is Matthew Stafford. I believe he's getting a little older now, but I believe he still can make all the throws and special arm talent. I love Zach Wilson, man. I seen enough when he came out of college. I loved him. He was my favorite quarterback in that draft last year, as far as from a talent perspective, because he can make all the throws, man. I seen him make all those throws on different platforms like a Mahomes and the Josh Allen and the Aaron Rodgers. So that's my list. But I feel like I might be leaving somebody off, or should have had somebody in there.
I know what you're saying in terms of like you're feeling you're leaving somebody off, but that's who I have to. That's my exact special list. I mean,
okay.
and my order, and I actually just rated these guys in order actually. I have Patrick Mahomes, I have Josh Allen, I have Justin Herbert, I have Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, and Zach Wilson. And for full disclosure, right now, I do think Wilson, in terms of just talent, is above Stafford at this point, because I do think Stafford lost like a mile off of his 110 mile per hour fastball, but I have to see him perform consistently at like this level before I put him up there.
Yeah.
But I have no disagreements. I mean, that is my exact list. I mean, these guys, they speak for themselves, except for Zach Wilson, to like the average fan, because he's on the Jets and they just see his win-loss record and they're not looking. But he's special.
Okay.
He really is Mahomes, Rodgers in terms of like what he can do throwing. His thing now is just learning how to play at this level. And if he can do that, I mean, I think you have a top 5 quarterback for the next 10 years.
And Zach Wilson, yeah, he's a dog, man. What about Matthew Stafford?
Stafford, he's 100% firmly on this list. Like it's like I said last week, I don't give guys credit for being on good teams, and I don't discredit guys for being on bad teams. If your talent shows to me, it shows. He's always been a top five talent, and he's always been firmly a top 10 quarterback, and sometimes top 5. But he was in Detroit. I'm just happy for him that he got the opportunity to really play on a national stage, and he showed it. All of that sidearm stuff that he does, he's been doing that for years, and I'm just proud that he really got to finally show it. I do think he did lose like a tad off of his velocity, especially on his deep ball. I noticed that a few times last year, but for him losing a tad is still better than 95% of the league.
Got you. My last point for QB tiers, just for our local fans here, I'm pretty sure they're like, where's our guy, Trey Lance? I love Lance. I could see him being in that 2-ish tier spot, like right there with Trevor, with Justin Fields. Definitely has a strong arm, can throw the ball deep and drive it. I just need to see a little more. Man, between the last 3 years, with all the camps and 7-on-7 stuff that's going on where kids can get reps, from his last year of high school to now, he's only got about 300 reps at quarterback underneath the center. So I have to see a few more. I just got to see a little more of him. That's all.
The reason I left him off this list is because it's too hard for him, because he has 2 of the things that I really value, which is RPMs that he can put on it and distance. He does not throw a tight spiral. He can't place it where he wants to yet, and that matters when it comes to arm talent. It's not just how hard you can throw. It's can you place it well? He doesn't do that yet. I still believe the 49ers can be a Super Bowl team with him, just because I do think that whatever they lose with consistency with like Jimmy G, they'll gain in big plays with him. It just might be frustrating at times because his accuracy comes and goes. He can't really throw it over the middle yet because Kyle does not trust him because he doesn't know where the ball is going to end up, and he throws high, which is usually not a good recipe at this level. And that's basically it for him. I think he's a very talented young man. He can be on a tier 2 or even a tier 1, honestly, for what he can really do. But I just personally have to see it more also.
Facts. Man, fucking allergies whipping my ass for the last 2 weeks. Anyway, let's go. So we good with tiers? You got anything else?
100%.
Cool. Let's get to D-Watt, man. You know, we touched on his image last week. We kind of thought it wasn't set in stone. The last ruling that came down on him, and we knew that the NFL would eventually appeal. You called that out, brother. You said this wasn't over. It wasn't. The NFL ended up appealing the ruling, and I guess both sides settled and finally came to an agreement of 11 games and a $5 million fine. What's your thoughts and take on the D. Watt's suspension?
So I heard Mike Florio say this last week, and I 100% agreed with it. The $5 million fine is basically him giving back half of his money from last year. So he can say, I served, what was it, like 8 to 9 games last year as a suspension, quote unquote, also. So that was their way of saying that he served time last season and 11 games this year. So basically he served his full season suspension. I thought 11 games was very fair. Like I told you before this all started, I thought it'd probably be 10 to 12 games, and they settled on 11. I don't have a huge issue with it in the big picture. I think for me, the only way that I would have had a quote unquote issue necessarily, and it's hard for me to say issue because he brought all this on himself, is if he didn't get to play football this year. That's just the biggest thing for me. As long as he was able to play football somewhat for me, I would have been fine with it. And I think 11 games is, plus with the fine and him not playing at all last year, which, yes, again, he did agree to. But still, I do think that that's fair. At the end of the day, he's the justice system did not indict him because in those cases, it's hard to prove with unreasonable doubt that basically someone did it, and judges, they only like to take on cases that they can win. Or, well, like I shouldn't say judges, I should say prosecutors, they only like to do that. So he is allowed to work, and this is his job, and people need to get over that he's playing a kid's game and making millions of dollars. That's basically the thing that makes people upset, is that he can still go out and make millions after doing what he did or being alleged of what he did. Like, that's the main issue that people have. So I don't have an issue with it. And I'm just glad that this saga is finally over, as long as he stops talking, because he puts his foot in his mouth too much. As long as he stops talking and just accepts it and moves on at this point, it's finally over.
Definitely. I share the same thoughts that you have. The $5 million fine, I was fine with that as well. Just trying to recoup some of that money from last year that he was able to still get while being on the exempt list. I just wanted to see him be able to play ball at some point this year. I know he agreed to sit out last year, but still at the same time, I feel like he missed games. He didn't play. I was always cool with anything in between 8 to 12 games. It seems like the NFL wanted 12. Deshaun probably came at the table with 10. They met somewhere in the middle, and the $5 million fine, and that's that. So I'm good with it. Happy to see it. I'm actually happy and excited to see him play this season. Another question for you before we move on. So should the Browns stay with status quo and keep Jacoby Brissett, or should they go get a quarterback with Jimmy G or somebody else?
I think they should stay pat, but hey, dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things, like I told you. So who knows? But they should. they should just stand pat. I think Brissett is good enough to where, especially in their first, I think, four to 5 games, with that overall roster, that's winnable. So who knows if they start off 4-0, 5-0, and who knows? I mean, I don't think he'll come back and be Deshaun Watson, but I think after like a game or two, he'll be just fine.
I gotta pull it up. Let me pull it up right here. But I think when I looked at the schedule, it's crazy. His first game back is versus Houston. But when I looked at the NFL weekend, they got a bunch of big primetime matchups that weekend that I believe will take viewership. And I think the NFL knew that. Probably knew nobody really be watching that Browns-Texans game. But
I mean, I'm watching it
I'll
because I
probably
want to see him play.
no, like that week they got like Pat playing, I think Stafford. Like they got some crazy good matchups that week in the NFL. But I was looking at the Browns. I was looking at the Browns schedule. I believe I had them going like 4-5 or something like that. So they got week. Yeah, I believe they can win like 3 or 4 or 5 games with Brissett. So they opened up with the Panthers, Jets, Steelers, Falcons, Chargers, Patriots, Ravens, Bengals, Dolphins, Bills, Bucks. And then they got a bye, and then it's Houston. I believe they can, 50-50 with Carolina just because Baker's playing. He got something to play for. But I believe they can win that. They should be able to beat the Jets. They should be able to beat the Falcons.
They can beat the Bucks too. I just want to throw that out there, but we'll get to that topic later.
We'll see. That's moving into November football towards the end of the year. You know, Brady teams is always a second half team, but we'll see. They could possibly beat the Dolphins. I think that was the 4 I counted.
I think he can win 4 to 5 games, especially with that roster. Like I said previously, that Colts team when he got the entire season start unexpectedly, that Colts team on offense in terms of like what they had around him was not as great as what other people were saying. Andrew Luck was just freaking awesome, which is why they finished with what they did the year previously. I mean, as you can see, with how many quarterbacks that they've had since him, Andrew Luck does not grow on trees. So, and I'll leave it there.
Definitely. Quarterback heavy podcast today, man. These last 3 topics we got here are all quarterback discussions. Let's start with Pitt, man. Let's start with Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. 5-year college guy, man. 4-year starter, right? Did like 5 years in college, 4-year starter. Played at the Pittsburgh Stadium, practiced there. I've seen enough in the first couple preseason games, Keaton, where I feel like he's comfortable enough. You have a defensive-minded head coach. You have an awesome defense that you can lean on. You have a stud young running back, a pretty good O-line that's been getting better the last couple of years. And you got weapons, man. You got weapons galore. You got freaking Claypool, Deontay Johnson, you might have the best receiver in this year's draft, and Pickens. He looks like a stud right now. I just believe the situation is similar to the roster setup and organizationally. I believe it's a similar situation for Pickett that it is for Trey Lance in San Francisco as far as everything is set up around him. It's a pretty good organization from top to bottom. Why not just go with the kid right away? Just to see if he can play.
So Trubisky is a better player at this moment in time, but I do agree with you. If he can't show something with everything that you just said, especially with just the comfortability factor, if he can't show anything at that point, you got the wrong guy. I do think in large part we are too quick to judge some of these young quarterbacks, but I do think that you can judge whether they have juice or not pretty early, no matter how good or bad they're playing.
How do you feel, brother? How do you feel? I was always a big guy on not playing a rookie too soon, especially a rookie quarterback, because I believe you can, mess them up long term mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Just have a bad, just you can mess him up mentally moving forward in his career. But I changed my tune on that lately as far as I give that rookie quarterback 2 years, man. Like you said, sometimes we judge these quarterbacks too quickly, but I don't care if you have a terrible season one as a rookie. I'm gonna give you that second year just off rip because I want to see if you're gonna take that next step. That's how that's how I view playing rookie quarterbacks now. So that's why I'm more of the mode just put them out there, man. You got like we just said, you got all that set up for you. And plus, so look at the division. You got Joe Burrow, you got Lamar Jackson, and then you got Deshaun Watson coming back and will be back all of next year when next season rolls around. So by next year, I believe Pitt needs to know, can this guy play with these guys? Like, do we clear and cut have the worst quarterback in his division, or can he show promise to where he could play with these guys? I think you have to play him this year, brother, to know that.
I think you do too. It's like I just said, like you can tell despite performance what young guys have juice. It's like what we just did with our tiers. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. They had very uneven rookie years, but they showed that they have juice. So, yeah, I think Pickett, you should play him. He has so much in his favor for him to actually succeed and just make him look good. Even if he's not great, if the fan base is behind him and the players are behind him, it could be like, for me, it could be Jimmy Garoppolo or when Jared Goff was first with the Rams, and they were winning.
Yeah.
People pay attention to wins and losses, and if he can come in and be stable and win some games, because despite what people think, the Steelers are still a really, really good team and have a great roster, and they can win more games than what people are giving them credit for. And if he can just play mistake-free football, and at least in key moments, I think they have a chance to win plenty of games. And I think that you should just play him and see what happens.
Definitely. Brother, this next guy, I know we had a little bit of a back and forth last week on Tannehill. I think that was more Tannehill versus Jimmy G. But week 2, Malik Wallis puts together another pretty solid performance. Like to see him complete a few more balls. I think he was 7 for 17, 80 yards, threw a touchdown. Stood out again on the ground game, 5 carries for 40 yards, 8.5 yards per carry. I've seen enough, man. He's another kid where, you got a pretty good head coach that I like, Mike Variable, a strong leader of men, pretty solid defense. Offensive line is definitely top 5. You're bringing back a healthy King Henry. I say start the kid, man. I say start the kid.
He's talented enough to. I just don't think he can play quarterback enough. Well, I don't think he can play it well enough yet to play him. I just think that with where the Titans are and what they can do, you don't mess that up. I think he's one of the rare guys in this day and age that actually could benefit from sitting. Because I think he can learn more and just see how the game is played and see what he has to look for and see like what he has to hit. Because I think he'd be one of these young guys that would rely on some of his abilities, and when his first read's not there, just try and make something else happen. And that's just so hard. And I don't think he's overall gifted enough to overcome that at this moment in time. He is really gifted and he is really good, but I don't think it's enough to where you make that switch now. That's just me.
Got you. Last 2 here. Jordan Love. His coach just came out a few days ago said he sees tremendous growth in Jordan Love over the last few seasons. I don't see it, man. I don't see it. I'm sorry. You're a guy that you've been in the NFL now for 3 seasons. Your first game this year in preseason was versus another young up and coming quarterback in Trey Lance, and he looked. I'm not gonna say light years ahead of him, but he just looked a lot more comfortable and a little more developed than Jordan Love, who's been in the NFL in that same system under LaFleur for a couple seasons now. Looked a little better in week 2 versus week 1, but I'm not seeing it, man. Me personally, as far as us talking about young guys that got that juice, like I just don't see it. Me personally, man. What's your thoughts and feelings on Jordan Love?
He's difficult because circumstances matter. Excuse me. And honestly, excuse me, sorry.
You good?
So obviously, Trey got to play with starters, and his starters are much better than what the Green Bay Packers are. I also think that Jordan's development has not been the same as some of the other young quarterbacks because the organization, because of Aaron Rodgers, they're not as invested in him, even though he was a first-round pick. So I think from that perspective, you have to look at his situation. And do you see it overall? No. I think part of his struggles when he does get to play is he watches Rodgers and he tries to do the things that Rodgers does, and almost nobody else can do those
Is it
things.
me or that try to throw off the back foot a lot?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That like he watches Rodgers daily, and he's like, well, he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football and one of the 5 greatest talents ever, and he sees him do it, and he's like, oh, so like that's how you do it. No, that is not how you do it. He's just different. And
yeah, some of the elite guys like him, Allen, and Pat Brother, they're actually not the best guys to sit behind and learn from, just because they are a little unconventional, thrown from different platforms and stuff, and they're God gifted enough to do that. Every guy can't do that. Yeah.
And what people, because Rodgers is already a machine doing it the conventional way, so he can do it in those different ways. Yeah, Jordan, I just think that his development has, 1, been stunted, 2, it's just been weird, and it's hard to really judge him. Overall, and I'll leave it at this. Should he have been a first round pick? And that's why this is all like a story, is because he's a first round pick. I do not believe he should have been a first round pick at all. So that's why this is a thing.
Gotcha.
These guys do not draft themselves, so people look at him like he's supposed, but no, he was a developmental guy who should have been taken on day 2 somewhere.
Gotcha.
And I'll leave it there.
Got you. Last topic of the day, man, and I'm trying to pull up the odds, the week 1 odds, because I wanted to talk a little bit about this specific game and a player, the GOAT. Brady, in his weird disappearance, right here the last few weeks or last week and a half, he took a leave of absence from the team. I believe he's supposed to be back this week. Do you make of anything of that? What do you make of that? And do you believe that the Dallas Cowboys actually have a chance in week 1? A lot of people I've been talking to feel like the Dallas Cowboys can beat them in week 1. I don't see it.
I don't know what to make of this Brady thing. I've heard that it's a private family thing, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But the Buccaneers botched this because they've given a few different explanations as to why he's gone. So they've done him 0 favors. So I don't know. And to your Cowboys point, I do think they have a chance. The Cowboys are always one of those teams where they do have talent, and I think people just write them off because of the dysfunction at the top for the last 20 plus years, 25 years, I guess.
Gotcha.
Would I pick the Cowboys? no, would it shock me? Not necessarily, because as good as the Bucks are, and like the Bucks, they have a lot of talent. I do think, as we've talked about with other guys, they're disciplined, especially on defense at certain positions. It comes, it goes. So they can be had in a lot of different situations. I just don't know if the Cowboy offense can take advantage of it the way that they are right now without Michael Gallup, and obviously you trade away Amari Cooper. Now CeeDee Lamb is now the number one guy. He is talented enough, but it's a lot different when you're going against the second and third corner versus going up against Carlton Davis in week one, or drawing Marshawn Lattimore or like Jalen Ramsey or someone. So we'll see. I have faith in CD. I also think, like I said earlier with Dak, he kind of comes and goes, and he gets hot like when the game is kind of out of reach and the defense has changed. But again, I don't have coach's tape to really confirm that they're playing different defenses. So I don't know, but I will say this: I do think that Micah Parsons is arguably the best player on the field for either team. I can say that for sure. It's not definitive, but I can make that case. So.
I think I heard Colin Cowherd say something referring to Brady drama that he made a pretty valid point, and I think it's something along these lines. As far as, you gotta remember, Brady did retire a few months ago, right at the start of the offseason. He probably set some type of family vacation or family engagement up for the middle of the summer in August. That was probably already pre-planned. When he came back to the Bucks, he probably let them know, hey, I'm gonna take this week off or a couple of days off in August. I already had this plan back when my mind was in the retirement state. So I believe that's kind of it's something along the lines of family, like you said. Like you said. But as far as the Cowboys and the Bucks week one, right now the line is at 1.5. Like I said, I'll bet my bottom dollar. I just can't see Brady losing to the Cowboys, man. Referring to your point a minute ago that you said about Cowboys just always having talent, that's a fact, man. I believe for the last 20 years, nobody's drafted more Pro Bowlers and all pros than Jerry Jones. So just as much blame we put on Jerry also does his job by going out and getting the talent. I'm just not sold on their coaching. I don't believe their discipline. They led the NFL last year in penalties by 11. They come out and have 17 in week one of a preseason. That's probably a preseason record. You lose Amari, you lose Albert Wilson. He was one of my favorite wide receiver threes last season, Albert Wilson. So I don't see it, man. I definitely can see how some people aren't as bullish on the Bucks as they have been the last two seasons. But I actually believe the Bucks defense will come back to form closer to that playoff run from 2 years ago than last season, because Todd Bowles is taking over the head duties. I just believe that defense will be ready to go week one. I see it like a 28-17 type ball game. I could see it being a close game as well, but I'm taking Bucks, man. Moving closer to week one, I might end up taking the midline, but right now I'm taking the 1.5.
I do agree with you. I do think it's probably more apt to being 28-17 than like 32-30. But like, it wouldn't shock me. Like, that's just my point. It wouldn't shock me. Yeah, especially when like the Cowboy defense, I do think is really good. And like, again, you can make the argument that Micah Parsons is the best player on the field for either team. You can make a case. He's definitely one of the five. I can say that, and I'll leave it there.
Got anything else, brother? Are we good, man?
For me, that is it. Yeah, I think it was a great pod, bro.
Yes, sir. Hey, have a great week, brother. I love that shirt, man. I got to give me one of them. I like that, man. Right there. I was peeping that earlier in the pod. Yeah, I like that, man. Have a good week, brother. Dominate the week, all right?
All right. Peace out, brother.
Holla at you.
We play for keeps, Cuddy. You ain't heard about the huddle fire with no with DLane. We tryna get it off the muscle. Walters caught the pick and ran it back without a tussle. Blow the whistle, coach is trying to get back to the huddle.